did it more than once.
Did it say, what does it say now?
It says stop recording.
Great, we're good. All right, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the first meeting of the Charter Commission. You're all present. And first order of business is the election of the chair, the vice chair, a treasurer, and a clerk. We do have a $125,000 kitty, so we do need a treasurer to keep track of that.
Madam Chair Pro Tem,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to nominate Linda Sabula to serve as chair.
Second.
By the way, is someone going to take a minute?
I'm doing it.
Thank you very much, Tony.
I know the nomination for the clerk then.
Is there someone who would like to be nominated for vice chair?
I would like to nominate Sandy Hall for vice chair.
Second.
A treasurer, who can count?
Do we need a treasurer?
Yeah, we've got a,
Who can count? Let's see.
I nominate John Chory.
I nominate John, yes, John. Is there a
Second that.
There we go. And clerk,
I nominate
Tony.
Tony London.
Second that.
do you accept?
You didn't ask anybody else that question.
Well,
Right,
you're right.
that's right.
I'm being fresh. That's fine.
There was a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, so the slate is Linda's chair, Sandy as vice chair, John as treasurer, and Tony as clerk. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Excellent.
Okay. I had given some thought to how we should proceed.
All right, just going back one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have John second. I mean, I don't have any,
Second for John.
who nominated John
I did, Linda.
I nominated John.
and
either
Linda
one of us.
second.
There
Okay,
you go.
thank you.
All right, the third thing is discussion on responsibilities and timelines. One of the reasons for this meeting being me running around like a chicken to get times and everything else was we have 45 days to call a public hearing from the date of the election. I counted out, I said, So I went from May 20th, I got the 45 days, which was July 4th. I said, well, that's not gonna work. So the week before, I said, okay, so I have the Griffin Room for Thursday night, the week before. But then you have to have it advertised for 10 days before, which means we have to have it to Chronicle by a certain date, which is tomorrow at noon.
Wow.
So that's how we're doing it. That's why there was this little scramble to have a meeting so we could actually vote a couple of things.
So you want a motion with that?
Well, that's down here, but responsibilities and timelines. Sandy, you want to give us a quick overview? Because you did the charter 40 years ago and then 20 years ago, and you've been on the
I
bylaw
didn't
charter.
do it 20 years ago, actually. That was a whole other group of people who rejiggered things in ways that didn't work out really well. Timeline is we have basically 16 months. We can do it in less time to bring a final report and distribute it to every household in Harwich. As far as the timelines as to how we proceed, that's entirely up to the group. The first time around, 38 years ago, 1986. How long ago was that? We broke it up into the major boards and committees we met with as a large group, and then broke it up into two-person subcommittees to go to some of the smaller meetings and committees and what have you. I think, as I recall, and Alan Thompson's got all the records, and he's told me he'll give them all to me at some point, with all of the reports from the original consultant, which are very interesting, and probably a lot of them still valid today. But I think, clearly the two big ticket items are select board and finance department, and all of those kinds of things. So we have a lot to do in a pretty short period of time. So I think, if we were ever thinking in terms of monthly meetings, we need to do a lot more than that.
The one that
probably
pages.
weekly at some point, maybe not for the beginning, but, you know, when we really get digging into this, I think weekly meetings would be,
I think it's important. Because we have a lot, we have to discuss when we're gonna have the public hearing. The community is gonna tell us what's on their mind. Feed that all in. We should look at other communities, how they do things, where we would be looking to hire a consultant to assist us. Because us sitting here and scribing how the word should look, let's hire someone to do the scribing. We can look at the product and say yes, no, and work on it that way. But to have someone do that kind of work would be really good. We also, so there's a lot of work, and I'm glad to see some of you showed up with a charter. So please go on the website, print the charter so you always have it with you to these meetings. Read it. It's not that long. And start making notes as to what you say. I'm not sure I like this. I think this should be changed. We should review that. Start doing that so we can start having these conversations.
You say it's on our website?
It's on the town website
It's
under
on-
reports.
It's hard to find.
Yeah.
It is there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
under
it is.
reports,
You gotta dig.
it is there.
I think you should put it on our webpage too. I think it'd be good. But
That's
it's
a good
hard to
idea.
Front and
find.
center.
Even if you type in town
voted
charter
on this,
search
yeah.
bar,
Yeah, you
it
can
doesn't pop
scribble
up.
on
well,
that.
the Red website in general needs a lot of,
That's
work,
my note
to
page.
say the
But I think
least.
if you do that,
The consultant that we had the first
I can't
time,
make
when
that.
Dr. David Booth, who was a fascinating person, but he as we went from subject to subject, would prepare a report. And one of the things that a consultant can do is say, okay, somebody comes with up with an idea that's a little out of the box, because we can do that. We can do things differently. We don't have to be in lockstep with everybody else. Is it feasible? Can it be done? Is it going to conflict with Mass General laws? Yada da. So, there are other structures of, upper tier town government. Maybe you want to look at some of those. But I think we also need to cast a wide net as far as the consultant's concerned. I'm not thrilled at the idea of going straight back to the MMA with our Collins Center as it is to find our consultant.
Richard?
On that note, looking at, well, they can pick it up. It's,
Okay.
on that note of consultant and timeline, procurement is going to require a length of time to hire someone for.
No, it doesn't.
Okay,
We're not under 30B.
we don't have to go 30 feet out, we can hire who we want.
Who we want. Mass General laws, right here.
That's fine. If-
We are
if
exempt
don't,
from, we are exempt from 30B.
Then we need to create a process of how we're gonna choose a consultant.
Yep, which is
Moving
down,
forward. Okay,
down in
that's
the
fine.
agenda, yes. But basically, on some of the responsibilities and timelines, this is not the venue to start discussing that we don't like Mass General Law 257.76. It is what it is. If you don't like it, call your congressperson. But this isn't the venue to start discussing, we don't like that in Mass General Law. Why does it have to be done that way? Because it's the general law and we're gonna follow those. So any ideas we come up with, if they conflict, then that kind of puts that one to bed.
Well, it doesn't necessarily. We can do some things that conflict with the Mass General laws or tighten up, but we can't conflict with the Massachusetts Constitution.
And the yes, and there are some things, but there are some things in general law that you have to do this way. So there are things that we may not be able to do, even though it sounds like a great idea. But let's say, make sure we stay open to that. Has everybody been sworn in?
Madam Chair, question.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything sacrosanct about this June 25th date?
Yeah, 45 days.
That's the end of the period?
The end of the period is July 4th,
But I mean, is there any reason we have to have it on the 25th?
because that was the day that I could get the Griffin room in the evening.
Okay, well, I'm not available on the
Well,
25th.
yeah, some of us may not be available, as long as enough of us are there. Everybody is
So-
sworn in?
Yes. Can the meetings public hearings can only be held in the Griffin room?
It's big.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
I'm just,
We could hold
a
a
general
public,
question.
we
It
could
could
hold a
go,
public hearing here, but you
or
want it
the
at,
community center. I
as
mean,
long as it can be taped.
Okay,
We want to be taped.
okay, I'm just
Yeah, no,
curious.
that's the question.
204 has the library, which has the ability to be taped now, a lot of the planning board and board of appeals meetings are being held there
Oh.
because of the size of the rooms. And what they're doing is they're taping the meeting. It's not being published, broadcast live, but it is taped to be shown the next day.
So the cultural
So-
center?
Because of a couple of major scenarios going on with planning and board of appeals, they're shifting their meetings over to the 204. So you may want to
The
reach,
library?
correct, upstairs, you may want to reach out to Kara, who is the
Yeah,
director over
I
there.
didn't know that.
I do think our hearings should be held where they can be live broadcast. And people could remotely participate.
That's that one.
It's good to know anyway about 204.
Yeah, that's good.
And it runs 18 months, is that what we're doing?
16,
16.
You have a choice between 12 and 18 months for
18, Susan.
out. 16 is sort of where we need to be done, before it goes, to ballot and all of the, it's gotta be approved, Attorney General's gotta look at it and what have you. And then it goes to ballot. You do have the option to send it to the general court, but then they have the option to change what you've done. So you don't wanna do that.
And the purpose of going to general court would be,
Sometimes to expedite, but to me, it totally defeats the whole idea of home rule. I don't want 350 other towns deciding how we structure our government. We need to do that.
There are two ways to change a charter. And one of them is the whole room petition, which bypasses a vote at the town and goes straight to the general court, and they have the right to change things. The other one, it goes to a ballot, a town ballot, and the population votes on it. So there's two legitimate ways. I think Sandy is right. When you're doing something as big as a charter,
Yeah.
all these changes, it really should go to ballot.
Yeah.
Well, and that is actual home rule. Going to the legislature is not.
right.
Yeah. But it's allowed.
It is allowed.
It
And it's been
bypasses
done.
town meeting then? That's good.
Well,
It
town
does,
meeting doesn't vote on this. This
Good,
goes
okay,
straight to
good
the
to
Straight to
ballot.
ballot.
Good to know.
And is it a
But when
simple?
things go
Hmm?
to the general court,
51,
and I'll defer to our senator, is that many times if it has not gone through the process locally, they are hesitant to overrule a town.
Absolutely.
So it can go to the general court, there's no question. They frown upon it unless it has been vetted locally.
Yeah.
Well, the original idea of a home rule charter was that the legislature was getting endless little, bits of legislation from every little town all over the state saying, can we pay Bill Smith for his services as whatever? And so they decided to return some of that power to clean up their endless litigation and documentation and what have you. So we need to honor that and not bother them with this,
They have enough to do theoretically.
theoretically.
16 months isn't a lot of time,
It's
really.
not a lot of time. We did it in 12 the last time, but it was a smaller town, and
Okay.
Brooks Academy by
All these
candlelight.
details.
So basically, those are our responsibilities, and it's our responsibility to listen to the public, listen to what other people are doing, take the information in, and put forth something that is the way we want our town to be run. And have the voters, keeping in mind that the voters are gonna vote. Now, this doesn't go to town meeting. In the same way that the election for the Charter Commission did not go to town meeting. It went straight to the ballot. So,
And this doesn't need any kind of support from the select board?
It's independent of the
Totally.
select board.
it is totally independent,
Nice thing.
yes.
That's a good thing.
You'll probably, those of you who don't have due conflict of interest already training, you'll probably get a note from Emily that says, you need to do conflict of interest, please do it. It's not that bad, it's not that hard.
They've updated it.
Yeah, they've updated it, now they won't let you skip through the reading. Prior to this, it would have some little scenario, and you can say next, doesn't let you do that anymore.
You'll also be getting repeated badgering emails from the state to remind you to do your conflict of interest.
Yes, you will.
Even after you've done it.
No,
No.
no,
No,
Very good
I've
about
been
that.
getting weekly notices for the last year to do my conflict of interest training, even though I wasn't serving on any board or committee for the last year. So finally, when the election was, I just went and did it because I was tired of having an email almost every other day, actually.
yeah, they do want to make sure that you've gone through the training.
Yeah.
You've done it on the finance
Okay, yeah.
committee, or this might be new for you.
It's not hard. You can't fail. They don't let you fail. They just want to make sure you have read and understood.
It's like the plumbing test.
Yeah. But I-
Don't know, never took a plumbing test.
But I think that part of the conflict of interest is, we could probably all agree that if John took a bag of money over to Judith and said, vote this way, and she said, sure, that we would probably all agree that that was probably not a good thing.
Probably not, no.
Yeah, we'd probably all agree on
They'd
that,
both be in
maybe.
jail.
Maybe they'd both be in jail, but it's probably not a good idea. It's all the stuff that you don't think about. It's your spouse's sister's brother's cousin. How far do you go out before you have a conflict of interest on a contract or a hiring? And that's the stuff that you don't really think about, but there's some things that you can and can't do. You should be mindful of them. And if you ever feel like you're getting into a conflict, call the AG's office and talk to them. And say, this is the scenario, do I have a conflict? And they will assist you in determining whether you do or you don't. So that's good. All right, public hearing. This was, Natasha in the town administrator's office helped me write this up, because I wasn't sure how to do it.
It's very good.
What time do we want it to be? This is when the Griffin Room was available, and we'll look into the cultural center for other meetings. That's great news. I've got it, I said I scheduled it from 6 to 9. What do we think it should be? What do you want it to be?
It was 6.
6 is fine.
6.
Okay, starting at 6? Anybody have any problems with this?
Nope.
A motion to, move that we hold our first public hearing on Wednesday, June 25th, 2025, starting at 6 PM in the Griffin Room at Town Hall.
Second.
Thank you, Herb. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, unanimous. I'll ship this off to the Chronicle, to Barbara Rugg. And Rugg. Okay. All right. Now we're into, that was the important stuff to do. Now we're into set meeting dates, times, and frequencies. When can we not do meetings? I know that you're captaining a fishing boat on Mondays and sailboat, excuse me, on Mondays and Tuesdays.
Mondays and Tuesdays.
So,
And that goes to end of September.
okay, so probably for the foreseeable future.
One of the nights that's mostly free from other town meetings, because many here attend other
Yes.
meetings. Thursday is an empty night for the town. No conflicts with select board, planning, board of appeals, et cetera, finance. It's a good evening, it's empty, and probably better opportunity to secure the rooms that we need. And I will speak as someone who is still working full-time. I think someone else is working full-time.
As a month.
As am
That
I.
we not schedule daytime meetings, that we do it end of business day or that proverbial 6 o'clock.
Unless you want to do like 8 in the morning.
Generally,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're a realtor. What was I thinking?
generally, that's great. However, if we want to meet with staff, it's specified that we can meet with staff during their regular working hours. So if we want to talk to the finance director or the town administrator or whomever, we will need to schedule some daytime meetings for those.
Right.
But that's something we can approach down the road if we just have a regular meeting time,
And well in advance.
and well in advance, yeah.
I can tell you that the Griffin Room, because I was just looking at the schedule, the Griffin Room on Thursday evenings, there's nothing there. There's a day here and a day there.
But all our meetings don't have to be public meetings.
They all
They do.
They all have to be
Absolutely.
public meetings.
Yeah.
We are under open meeting
Yeah.
law, so we have to
Okay.
do the
Yeah.
agenda within the X amount of days of the meeting. We have to have everything, all our discussions in public.
As a group.
as of the group. And if we have authorized subcommittees, they also have to publish an agenda and have their meeting in public. That may be a way to meet with town staff, to have 3 or 4
good point.
people be a subgroup to go talk to so-and-so. But those subgroups, if they're authorized, have to have an agenda, have to post it, have to take minutes,
Mhm.
et cetera.
Why is she looking at you?
Because it doesn't look like he's listening to me.
He's listening. Linda.
Oh, looks tired.
Okay, so Thursdays,
Does Thursday evening seem to work for people?
Every
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
but the first Thursday of the month.
And there may be times when we have meetings where people can't make that
It's
meeting,
gonna happen.
Yeah.
and it's gonna happen.
Arts our pantry night.
Oh, God, yeah.
So, all right, so Thursday
I'm sorry, I
evenings.
should have talked about that.
Are we okay to start at something like 5 or 6?
Yeah.
6 would be better.
6?
I think if just folks who are working can grab a cup of coffee on the way here.
do we need to
I'll bring
meet
you one.
every week at this point? I suppose we do if we're talking about how to do a consultant and get a
Yeah.
clerk and that sort of thing. Okay, so we'll plan it every week.
We'll see what I can do in the, okay. This seems to be fine for us. I doubt we're gonna have hordes of people attending, but this seems comfortable.
The town's gonna be hanging on your every word.
Every word, every single word. Look what you did now. I can see it happening.
Yeah.
So, yes, Richard?
Just, and I know meetings are public, but we know in reality, the general public doesn't come to municipal meetings. Is that somehow, some way, that you as chair or the vice chair do an update monthly through maybe the Harwich channel or just,
Sure.
because I think it's important for people to understand what's happening, the process of what's happening. They don't all want to come Thursday nights at 6 o'clock, but it's good to have a general consensus or summary of the work that's being done on a monthly basis to people.
I think so too. If you look at the bottom
Yeah.
of your agenda, we already have a town email,
Yeah, yeah.
and we have a basic webpage
Yeah.
already up, a webpage, a town website. So I'm sure Natasha has said she will change anything, she will put stuff up for us. I'll talk to her about putting the charter on our own page, so there's at least a link to
Yeah.
it.
Mass general laws would be good too, for 43B. It's an easy one.
Okay, I'll ask her to do those too.
And we're gonna add one more, the town organization chart, that was on one page.
Oh, yeah.
To know who's who reports to who.
Well, that's part of the charter.
That's part of the charter
It was
anyways.
2 separate attachments, two separate PDFs.
Right, but they're all part of
That's
the
good,
charter.
as long as it's there somewhere.
So, we have a town, the town email is good, people can email us. These meetings will be taped, they can watch them. And we have a webpage.
I plan to post the agendas on a certain social media page, if you all don't mind, and talk, about what is under consideration, not
I'm
what
not on
anybody's.
Page at all.
But there are like
I know,
almost
but
I'm not-
4,000.
I don't,
I'm not on it either.
No, but
Yeah, I know what you mean, that's a good idea, if you can do it, then
not
sure.
to express an opinion, not to deliberate on anything, because that's verboten, but just to say, okay, these are the topics for this week. Maybe this is what this means.
Come to the
Yeah.
meeting,
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I think
And then probably post the YouTubes when they're up.
Yeah. So I think that there's a way for us to communicate with the community.
Frequency is, what is the thought on that?
Yes.
How frequent? The meetings? You're
Well-
saying Thursday, but
We're
Weekly,
talking-
Paul.
We're
We're
talking
Once a month?
every week,
Weekly for now.
to
Oh,
start
we're talking weekly.
initially,
initially.
at least.
And will we start next
Sep-
Thursday?
Uh,
Is that enough time to post, for example?
I'm not
No.
available.
It's not, because I'd have to run home at the end of this meeting and post by noon for next week.
Okay,
So I think it's easily, a second Thursday night from here.
okay.
So,
So the
So
ninth,
that would be
June
the
19th.
19th.
It's a holiday.
it's a holiday.
That's
June
Juneteenth.
is that a town holiday?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a
National-
national holiday.
Yeah.
I would say yes. Okay.
It's not easy.
It isn't easy.
So the next Thursday is the 26th, the day after our first,
Yeah,
our
Hearing,
here, yeah.
We need to have
Is that-
something
is that
between
good?
now and the hearing.
Let's reschedule from our Thursday schedule prior to. Can everyone look at their calendars, please, while we're here?
Yep.
Mhm.
Could we do a Wednesday on an 18th if there were a room available?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm,
How
I
about the
can do
first meeting
between-
on the 26th?
yeah.
What's the matter with that?
Well, we need
It's
to
too
have a
far
meet,
away.
we need to have a meeting ahead of a hearing, so we know what we're actually
doing,
structuring a hearing.
and we have things to do. So no, this isn't gonna be a monthly meeting, Paul. This really is going to be every week. We might go to every 2 weeks as we start getting more information and have to digest it. But no, this is not a meet once a quarter thing. We have a ton of work to get through in a short amount of
Do you want me
time.
to check now downstairs to see if the 18th is available?
Could we do the 17th? I can't do the 18th. Are you sailing already in
yeah.
June?
Oh, yeah.
Is there going to be conflicts?
There's always gonna be
Yeah.
conflicts.
Is
I
there,
can do from 5 to 6. That's it. I'm on,
On Wednesday.
that's it, yeah, because the next Wednesday I'll miss that Wednesday evening.
Well, could
to
we do it
this.
earlier in the late afternoon, perhaps?
Yeah, Wednesdays
do-
are my worst
Linda,
day.
I'll check that date downstairs to
Okay,
see
please
if
do. See
it's
which one is
available.
available. Okay, let's move on from that and see what Richard comes up with. Hire a recording secretary.
Mhm.
It is very difficult to do
Very.
minutes,
Oh, I
participate,
know.
et cetera.
So
So-
I've done this
Yes.
for not a lot of years, I know.
So.
God
who would
bless
like
you.
to- who would
It's the
like to
worst job.
take charge of going in and figuring out how we hire somebody, how the notice gets put out? Because the chair, even though I'm wearing a tiara, isn't gonna do everything. So is there a person who would, yes?
So before you talk about hiring, I don't know how much the consultant and the secretary all comes out of that
125,000.
125.
Plus the printing,
And the printing and the mailing, et cetera.
yeah, that's a big chunk of,
So it can be done through AI, that you just do AI and listens to the meeting, and then you record the meetings from that.
And somebody has to review it, because I've seen AI come up
Yeah.
with some pretty
No, but
funky things.
I-
We need a paid recording
okay.
secretary, I think we do.
So then, as a clerk, you don't need to do this.
Right.
Yeah, that's
So
really
that's-
some, yeah.
Okay,
you
I was
need to
saying that
record,
I-
if we do a vote, you need to record all of it.
right.
I will be happy to go and talk to Jen
Okay.
and Natasha about, I think we can put an ad up on the website, because there are
Got it.
positions, and
Right.
put it out on whatever email or social media we've got,
Got
looking
it.
for somebody to act as, I mean, that's not,
You also may want to say in the ad that they can watch the tape and do the minutes from that.
well, the
That they
only,
may not have to be here. If they can't make a meeting, that is a fallback.
assuming that that always works.
I know, we had our troubles with it.
Exactly. I wouldn't add that as a necessarily. That's a good talking point, I think, when you're
Okay.
having that conversation, but we've had issues with this in the past, and I don't trust it entirely.
So you will follow up and you will
I'll
get
go
that motion.
downstairs before I leave and
Great.
see what I can get going.
Search for, yes.
just as a question, because I've had to do it over at the society and at lodges too, is there any prohibition of us making our own recording, just a verbal recording of the
No.
meeting?
Turn your phone on and do it.
And anybody from the audience can do the same thing, but they asked to notify the chair ahead of time.
Right. So you can absolutely do that.
Okay.
I'm not really in favor of having to pay somebody to record the meetings. I
To do the
find that
minutes.
kind of an unnecessary expense, and usually the person at the meeting is able to take notes and cover the scene, and the person who's doing looking at a recording and coming up with some sort of formal notes from that is too distant from the process.
You
I'd
volunteer-
prefer just to have the clerk take the notes, and if there's questions after 2 or 3 meetings that everything isn't being covered or something, then maybe, but it just seems like an unnecessary expense to me. I've never quite figured out why committees need to have somebody take minutes.
Can
Well,
I
having-
ask you a
having-
question?
Having been, take minutes at meetings, it is very difficult.
Well, I know.
To do
Look,
that.
I've
It's
been
very
around the track once or twice myself.
And this is gonna
I
be
know-
complicated stuff. This isn't gonna be whether or not we make a $5 increase to a rec fee. Judith?
No, I was just gonna say, have you ever been the one taking the
I
minutes
certainly have,
and participating?
in person.
Well, I guess it also
I mean,
depends
it's
on how
not that-
detailed minutes we want. Do we want just what votes were taken, or do we want, because I'm guessing Tony's right now doing.
I'm not
You're
doing-
not doing detailed
I'm not
minutes.
I'm doing minutes like I would do at a school
At a
committee
school
meeting.
committee meeting, yeah.
General, because to me, that's what minutes are.
Right.
Word
And if there's a-
verbatim, you can always go back and look and
Agree.
revisit what's been taped, if
And it
something
also
is
is the
missed.
sense of if there's a discussion on a topic, discussion on something or other, if there's 1 or 2 sentences that is the discussion centered around the legality of doing something or other. But you don't need, we don't need verbatim, absolutely not.
No, but I know for the water commissioners, we have one of the staff does minutes. And so it's what the clerk does, but it's also adds in those nuances, which are important for the general
Well,
public.
why does the clerk need to take minutes then?
Because
She
we don't
doesn't.
have
She has-
anybody
she
to
needs-
take them right now.
She needs to formally
Well, I
post
know,
them.
but she's saying is clerk, and then we have a person that records.
No,
It just seems like a totally unnecessary expense.
Noted.
I've never found it to be anything more insightful or complete in the recording of the meeting than simply identifying what votes were taken, who had stuff to offer. I don't know, I mean,
Richard?
it's like we have money, so we're trying to figure out ways to spend it.
I don't think that's.
I don't think that's it at all.
Richard?
Robert's Rules talks about recording action taken. I think it's motions, seconds, votes. If there is a major topic, there was a general discussion of. Simple. Any more detail than that should go to a recording. We shouldn't, it's really the motions, the seconds, the votes.
The open, the close?
That's it.
Was there a quorum?
Exactly. Sometimes we look at these minutes and they're, 15 pages of, Mr. Chori said,
Right.
Ms. Hall said, Mr. Bula said. We don't need that.
No, we do
Watch
not.
the
Well, the select board minutes are almost a transcript.
onerous.
And you
Yeah.
could actually run a transcript in place of those minutes.
Right.
And probably be a whole lot happier. But first, I think it's a little unfair to the person being clerk to have to be responsible for those, because it does impede your ability to participate in the discussion. If all you're looking for is action taken, then you're not going to be paying that person a whole lot of money. But I still come back to, as long as the technology is working, you're fine. But if it isn't, you still need some kind of detail, even if it's just notes that have been taken and maybe not even necessarily incorporated into minutes. But we've had whole first parts of our meetings cut off on bylaw charter review, and they're gone.
Is there a motion on the table?
No, there's not.
Okay.
There's no motion on the table. All right,
Do you want a report of the dates?
how about we finish this topic
Yes, go ahead.
first?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Are we going to hire a recording secretary or not? Sir?
I can put my 2 cents in as far as, I think we should hire one. As a former chair of the finance committee, I find it very tasking to have accurate minutes. And I spent a lot of time myself correcting the minutes, hours, days correcting it. We should hire someone. That's what I think. And then define a scope of work there.
Richard?
I ask the opinion of our current clerk, how she feels.
It doesn't, to me, that would be helpful if I were to be doing it, that you now, unfortunately, we have the capability of AI that would be listening to everything. If I had a question, I could go back and look at that. That might be the minutes that you then dwindle down from what I've written down. I don't know.
Do you believe we should hire or not?
I guess not knowing how much a consultant's gonna be, not knowing how much printing's gonna be, do we need a budget before we make
I don't think
that decision? I don't know. I have no idea monies, what a consultant
Well,
is gonna cost.
the 120,
Sandy,
Oh, I'm sorry.
So we're looking at meeting once or 4 times a month,
Probably.
2 hours, that's 80 hours, plus another hour per meeting to write notes. If we calculate all that, it amounts to about $1,000 to $1,500 a year. And so we just spent 20 minutes on $1,500.
That's a good perspective. It probably is.
How
Still
about we
needed
just
to have
try
the
it
discussion.
without,
I understand, we still needed to have the
So
discussion.
let's get the facts first, which says, what's it gonna cost? This is what it's gonna cost. Is it a major expense or minor expense?
as far as
why don't we
the,
find out? Let's go for
Can we,
several.
actually, you don't have the floor. Sandy has the floor.
as far as the budgeting is concerned, the $125,000, the big chunk of that was $75,000 that was predicated on what the select board and the town administrator offered to the bylaw charter review committee for money for a
Right.
consultant. So that piece, I think, is probably, and I did at one point talk to the Collins Center and said, you know, how much? And their answer was, it depends on how much you want to use us.
That's helpful.
Very helpful. I have, you know, emailed them since, and they've been totally non-responsive, and I think I'm hoping that there are other people in this Commonwealth who would be less inclined to take what's the word I want, the traditional route, and be a little bit more creative and less inclined to support certain types of opinions. We might want different opinions. But the 50,000, which I was accused of being very greedy for, was to cover the clerk, was to cover the printing. I think it's probably more than we're going to need
Okay.
by a good deal, but, you know, rather than have to go back to town meeting or go back to a finance committee, I'd rather return money at the end of the day than not have enough. So I think we've got sufficient to do what we need to do. And I just think having done minutes many times and refusing to for the last 20 years, because who wants to be the one to have to be responsible for that? I think it does make it really hard for the clerk to participate, and everybody needs to have the full opportunity to participate.
I also think too that when we look at the consultant, we need to do work too. That if the question on the table is, how many positions should be elected in the town, say? Well, how about, we're all gonna get assigned a town or two. You're gonna take your town or two, you're gonna contact the town administrator, and you're gonna say how many people are elected there. So we come back with information so that we can drive the consultant. We shouldn't leave the consultant to run loose. We've got to direct it, but we have to do some homework too. That if there are things that we know that people do in other towns, take that information, bring it to the committee, and we'll talk about it. But we can't just all sit here for 2 hours and do squat outside. So
Homework.
I'm gonna look for people to actually, I just said before this meeting started, I said, everybody should print out that charter and read it and bring it with you every single meeting, rather than saying, well, can I see your copy? Where is that? there's a responsibility here personally too. So where are we with our clerk?
Grab a motion.
Go ahead,
I don't want
I wanna make it. Somebody wanna make a
I
motion?
move that we advertise for a clerk, secretary, recording secretary. I don't know if we want to specify an amount. I think we need to find out what kind of response we get.
And also, I think that the town has people who are recording secretaries for various committees that work. They're in the personnel bylaw, and they have dollar values assigned to them already, so it's not a, so it's already there.
Yeah.
We advertise for a recording secretary and request the front office to put it on the job postings on the website.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Herb seconded? Any further discussion? Richard, you're bursting to say something.
to. No word.
Got it. All right, no more discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
2 opposed. 3 opposed? 3. Okay. We can revisit this if it isn't working.
Well, we may not get any response, in which
That's
case
true,
we
too.
will have to adjust.
Punt.
Okay, thank you. Next, search for a consultant.
Pete Pikarski has apparently compiled a list of other sources of consultants for the select board for their town administrator
Really?
search, and I didn't have the time, but I think I want to go beat on his door and see if he will be willing to share that list.
I'll take that on.
Okay, you can do that.
Let me talk to Pete.
And I
Is it-
think that there's a Massachusetts Association for consultants that do political work.
It's
Don't
called the
quote me
Collins-
on that.
It's called the Collins Center, and
Out of UMass Amherst?
it's what used to be the MMA consulting. It's
No, I mean private consultants that, it's like a professional association.
okay, maybe. But I
I'll-
thought
I'll-
that had all been
I can
gobbled
also,
up by the Collins Center, which is a official.
No,
No.
I mean, there are,
I
a
can
lot of them
also, I
are,
can talk to the MMA as well
Yeah.
and ask them for,
Yeah.
I think you should keep your options open for all consultants who deal with
Yeah.
charter, and people have individual disagreements with some, that's fine, but we should look and cast a broad net.
and I went to consult, they probably are part of the state,
Yeah, they might
state
be.
bid
They might be part of that state
Yeah.
bid. Yes, don't know.
database, yeah.
Could we do a list of what we want the consultant to do so that we know what we're looking for?
That would be a good idea. Why don't we, because that's gonna be part of, this is what we, because we need a list, this is what we want you to do so that they can bid on it.
Yeah.
That's a pretty, right, let's,
What we might want to do is invite some that look promising here and ask them what they can do for us.
and say yes or no, yes, and we
Yeah.
can poke at them. That's a good point. So, taking my handy little thing, yes, John?
Do we know any towns that are currently doing this same process right now that we can consult with?
Not that I've heard of.
I don't know how we find that out.
Good question for MMA, they would know.
Yeah.
Yeah, MMA would know.
350 towns, someone's got to be doing it besides us.
And the fact
Not
that we can
necessarily.
do, we have remote participation, so that person doesn't have to come
Yeah.
from someplace other in the state. They don't have to be in Harwich. So they can always be participating on the screen.
We can even do an RFI, a request for information, where they send us a, 2 to 5 page proposal, which kind of explains their previous work.
Would you even send it to them?
That you would put out on like the Mass
You put them on like
Comms,
MMA, almost like a
MMA.
job posting.
Yeah, exactly.
How about we take like 10 minutes? What would we like, see if we can even prepared?
Good for you.
What do you think you want a consultant to do for us?
Are
What do you
they,
want them to provide?
are they an attorney by default?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, no. We would probably separately have an attorney look at, and not KP Law probably, because that's the towns, but probably we might think about having an attorney look at a finished product and tell us if something is problematic from a legal point of view.
But why couldn't we use Paul as an attorney?
I think there's a conflict there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah, big
I'm
conflict.
hoping that the consultant will understand the legalities.
Me too,
And I think that the attorney discussion is further down the line.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's consultant first.
yeah.
And I think adherence to, I know you don't like the term Mass General Law.
I'll write this
I
down.
have no problem with Mass General Law.
No?
Well,
Okay.
yeah,
So, what do you think that, so consultant provides what? Someone's gonna be,
Adherence to MGL. Because I think your point of thinking outside the box is great.
in
And-
the Constitution.
Correct. And just looking at options, but we're gonna make sure that
Yeah.
Right.
they are
They should
adhering
have-
to both
I mean,
of
you
those.
wouldn't wanna be having somebody do your taxes that didn't have any idea of tax law.
Oh, you should.
You shouldn't.
Well, most of these consultants are conversant with Mass General laws.
Yeah.
But I think that that's something we want them to have, to provide to us. What else?
Are there,
Paul?
are there current charter commissions operating here in the Cape that you
Not
are aware of?
No.
Not that I know of.
No,
Anywhere in Massachusetts?
I don't think so.
Google that.
I'll look around. I mean,
Yeah.
shouldn't be too
I would think we would want to check and see if others are functioning, and do they find, what is it appropriate if they're using a consultant? What did their experience generate in terms of who we're looking for? I mean, are you looking for, a person who's more versed in the legal end, or the planning end, or the financing end, or a general government awareness?
Would you like to take that on, Paul? 'Cause somebody's gotta, if we
I'll
want that,
take it on.
great. Paul is gonna take on checking other charter commissions and their, great.
Amherst did
I don't
one in
know how many meetings I can
2017. That was the last one I'm seeing.
That's where our consultant came from.
Was that one?
Yeah, it's the city of
So-
Newton too.
So you got Amherst, so if you would do that and
Newton.
just come up with, if you can for the next meeting, what their results were, did they use a consultant or not, that would be great.
Yeah,
And
What else?
and I,
Go ahead.
the town of Watertown did one in 2021.
Is it a charter commission with a consultant, or is it a
Newton?
charter review?
I'd have to go through all of their docs. They
Yeah.
had two years. or
I'll
What's
call
the
the
new
Mass
one?
Municipal Association.
So
They'll-
Paul, take care.
Yeah,
I just
Newton,
looking for-
Framingham, Pepperell, there's,
Oh.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's in Paul's bailiwick, you can
Yep.
call the MMA, find that out,
Yeah,
get back
I'll
to
get
us.
that done.
All right, good. What else do we want the consultant to provide? Luke?
I would want a consultant that, and I may be using the wrong words, but a problem solver. Someone who can stretch our own thinking.
So outside the box.
Outside the box.
Sandy?
It's been many years since the original charter, since the 2006 comprehensive review by the Bylaw Charter Review Committee. I would like to know what's changed. What options may be open that might not have been open then, what options are not open that would have been open then? So have there been major changes or even minor changes in
Thought process and
how people are
legalities
doing in
and-
the legalities and the, the walls around whatever it is we're doing,
Cool,
and the doors.
that's a good one.
Well, we certainly have to identify, hot spots in the charter that,
And options, what other options might we have that would work better than what we're doing?
And I think that comes in under problem solver, outside the box, are there other options? I'd like to make sure that they will scribe changes.
Oh, Yes, make sure our language will pass muster with the Attorney General. Yeah. Great point.
Right, because that's always the one that gets you, and the Attorney General says, well, no.
Yeah.
Because we find that, you know, when we do articles for town
Mhm.
meeting, they come back and they say, no, this isn't gonna work for the following reasons. What are the other types of things we'd be looking for, Paul?
Sensitivity, I think we're gonna have to find somebody who's sensitive to the community here. You're gonna be presenting stuff that I'm sure gonna be controversial, and if we start off on the wrong foot and get to talking about things that are
Gonna set people's hair on
not
fire.
sensitive to the current vibes in the town here. I don't know whether we can find somebody who's a resident of this town who can serve as the consultant, but I'm hoping we don't have to wander too far afield, because I know from long experience in several areas, if you get somebody who comes in with these preconceived ideas on what should be done and trying to insert the square peg in the round hole kind of thing. So
No, I think that's a good point, sensitive to the community, because I was just reading some, we've got this Vision Zero that the
yeah, we've got to, yeah.
county is doing, and when I went to one of the initial meetings, because they're using Google Earth, one of the suggestions was to put bike lanes on Bell's Neck Road.
Oh, jeez.
Okay,
It's a good idea.
Absolutely. Two.
so we pointed out to them, are you aware that that's a complete dirt road, full of potholes, and nobody lives on it?
Did they
The
want to
section you're
pave it?
talking about, and they said, oh. So they'd never been to the road that they're making a suggestion on. So I think your sensitivity to the community, that somebody from Boston may not have the same sensitivity to a small town. I think that's a good point, Paul.
It's a great point, and it's, the last few consultants I've seen with the community, they've spent a substantial amount of their budget becoming aware of the
Yeah,
community.
exactly.
Yeah.
And having their interviews with, stakeholders, having interviews with residents to find out what the community is about, and that's part of the budget. That's part of, they're getting to know. Shouldn't have to, and if we can get someone who has some idea of who we are as a community, that would be a great point, and that would be one of my issues when it comes to a search.
Yeah. Lou,
I would like to put an S behind consultant, because we may need to have someone with an expertise in a certain area. You're not gonna find all those characteristics in one person, or it's gonna be very difficult.
got it.
So maybe we
We'll
need
leave
to,
that open.
okay.
Yeah, your consulting firm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or
Yeah,
even
getting
a
a
college professor to
consulting
tell us a few
firm
things about
sometimes will
politics.
give you
What do
that
think?
level of expertise, that they can count on someone else.
We just don't want to, we just want to avoid
Yeah.
having a cookie cutter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay. No cookie cutter is another one. I also don't want to get into having dueling consultants.
Oh, God.
This consultant says this, well, this consultant says that, well, which one do you listen to? So I don't want to get into dueling consultants. That's a pain.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Wouldn't that
It's
be?
gonna be enough, we're gonna have dueling constituents here. We don't need a consultant to help us
You
with
know,
that.
you make a point, and we should address that right away. We all bring different perspectives from the community, but we're all working for the same cause. What's in the best interest of this community?
Bingo.
So, yes, it's a good idea to have some discussions. It's a great idea to say, well, I disagree, Ms. Hall, or with Ms. Sabula. But it's literally, what we are doing is shaping this community for the future. And we all have the same passion for this community. So we can't ever lose focus of that. I think that's the most important thing that we can do as we start out.
And I think it is important, just because we disagree does not mean either of you is a bad person. It is, we disagree.
Well, him maybe.
Except him. Well, what came to mind is I saw a cartoon that the husband and wife were arguing, and he said, she says, we're not arguing. I'm right, and you're just saying stuff. Which I really liked. So, no cookie cutter, I think our own, sensitive and being respectful from one another. And if the committee votes to do something and there's one or two people who don't agree with it, we'll see how it works out, maybe we go back and revisit, but, Paul.
When this charter was last written here, this document,
2006. With some
in
changes
the
here and
80s,
there.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, the original was 86, Paul. It
Are
wasn't-
any of the people assembled at this table?
Sandy.
One. And at that time, was there, the process that went through, did it involve relying on some outside input in terms of
We had
consultancies?
Dr. David Booth from Amherst, who was our consultant, and he provided many reports. Every time we had a topic, he provided a report to the group talking about, various options and what have you. And I actually am asking Alan Thompson, because I think he still has all that material. He said he would give it to me. Detailed reports, he would come to the meetings. We met weekly at Brooks Academy, sometimes by candlelight, true, for basically 12 months. So, yeah, we relied very heavily on him.
Were you the youth representative
And
back
he was
then?
a doctor
Were
of
you old
what?
enough to vote when you were?
I was 38.
I think he was a PhD.
Ooh,
She was so young.
I know,
PhD.
it was
Doctor
nice.
of what?
I'm older than you.
I think
No.
either history or political science.
He's a professor,
He's,
education.
Schmoozing
Yeah.
will get you nowhere.
So,
Ru-
and keep in mind that in 86, we had no charter.
Mm.
So this
Correct.
was
Right. It
a
was-
soup to
right.
nuts right. And 20 years ago was a review and some changes. We're not saying, I don't think anybody's saying here, we're gonna start completely over again. If there are parts of the charter that are fine, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Aren't we looking at what works,
Yes.
what doesn't,
Yes.
doesn't?
And if it works, it works.
And
If
what
it
need-
doesn't work,
Yeah.
change
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And some things that just simply need to be clarified and tightened up so it's clear.
Yes.
Because there's been a lot of convenient reinterpretation of certain things over the last number of years, and we need to make sure that
Can we
it's
get
very
back to the consultant?
clear
Back-
what,
Can we
What?
finish this,
Get
please?
back to the consultant, please.
oh,
Before the
Okay.
next one?
Okay, so we have things like,
I'm not
And
quite
here-
done yet, Madam Chairman.
Not
Couple more
yet.
questions. What was he a doctor of? You say
he
doctor
was a
somebody.
professor.
A professor of what, though? I mean,
Oh,
what
God,
was his
you're asking me
background?
that now?
Doctor of letters.
Political
Do we know?
science, I would imagine. He was,
government.
yeah, he was a government and political
Government.
science, and he came through MMA at the time. Didn't he? I think that's right,
okay.
Paul,
Eh,
you remember breakfast?
Okay,
Um,
let's get back to the consultant, what we want the
Well, I
consultant to
know,
provide.
but that's helpful to know the background of that person. That's why I was
This 40
curious.
years ago, we didn't even know if he's alive.
He's not,
Um,
he's not.
So.
Because there were
what
things
do we-
in this I'll just finish.
Go ahead, keep going.
There are things in this document that strike me upon reading it, strange.
Okay,
That,
we're gonna get to that, that's the next section of topics we'd like to consider. Let's stick to the consultant. What we want the consultant to provide.
okay,
But to follow up just a little bit on the question of what the consultant provided, the 2006 revision was a bylaw charter review revision that actually went to the general court.
yeah.
I don't think they had a consultant. I think that was, I'd have to ask Anita, I wasn't part of that.
Update or whatever.
But a lot of things got strange
Okay.
at that point, I
Yeah.
think.
I'm trying,
I
Tony,
know,
I'm trying.
I know. I
Okay,
was gonna ask again.
No further questions.
what else would we like, we've listed out adherence to Mass General Law and state constitution, somebody they can be problem solving, outside the box, deliver us with options on how to do things, knowledge of what has changed over the past 20 years, good scribers for language, sensitive to the community, I think is an important one, no cookie cutter thought process. Here you go, boom. Are there
we-
other things in general that
Are-
we'd be looking for?
Would we be doing stakeholder engagements with the community, and would the consultant be facilitating those, or would that be a separate person? I'm just throwing that out.
No,
as-
I think that part of the contract will be they'll hold 2 public hearings, they will do 2 public hearings, we'll be there to listen to the public, present what is being thought about, et cetera. So yes, there are more public hearings to come. The one at the end of June is not the only one.
Okay,
This
so-
is the law requires this, but we're supposed to keep people updated, as Paul said, and part of that is public hearings, information.
But do we want one of the qualities of the consultant to be a large group facilitator? May or may not be.
Facilitator of hearings. I think, do we want that? I think that's,
I'm just throwing out the
If they're
question.
not, they can always hire someone to do it. I
Well,
mean,
we-
that's as simple as
That's
it is,
true.
right? If they're a good consultant, they know how to get things done. If they're not a good facilitator, they'll bring someone who is a facilitator.
but that's a good
Agreed.
question. Have somebody else in the firing line for the facilitator.
Well, I think in general, we can facilitate our own hearings.
Yeah, but if we need to have something big and we think that there's going to be a lot of discussion, and maybe the facilitator can stay
As a wingman.
less emotionally attached.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you're doing, it's nice to have that separation.
Because in hearings, you shouldn't really be engaging back and forth with
Right.
someone. If they say chicken on your head, we write it down and say, thank you. We don't go back and forth,
Right.
because that then gets you in trouble with discussion, et cetera, right?
Absolutely.
So I think this kind of says what we're looking for a consultant. Cool.
Did you write down clarity? Clarity is the most important thing I think we have coming from this charter. Someone who can be concise and clear so that they're not 5 interpretations. I think that's been one of the issues out there. You mentioned that. Clarity is so important.
Yes.
Simple.
No wiggle room.
No, it's,
It is important to me, because there are places in the charter where there is the wiggle room of the language has been interpret the interpretation, and that has to, we gotta get rid of some of that as much as we can.
lawyers love that ambiguity.
Yes, they do, they really do. They
Well,
love
we've
ambiguity.
certainly made a whole lot of money on it, haven't we?
You're gonna get that interpretation no matter what you
Do you want that in the wall,
come
Linda?
up with.
Oh, look at you.
Close enough.
This is why she's getting the big money.
I
know,
know,
this is why
she's scared.
All right, topics to be considered for changes to the charter, and this is not meant to be I think section 6 should change by this, and we have a discussion. This is, what are the topics that are on our minds right now? This will not be a major, the only list.
Madam Chair, point of order.
Yes, sir.
We never finalized our next meeting. And
Oh,
if anyone,
yes, you
if
did
anyone's
say that.
leaving early, we should have that nailed down. The dates that we talked of are not available
Got
for
it.
either room. There are dates, the small meeting room could be available after 6 PM on the 17th. The 16th, there is nothing in this room. Again, Ms. London was correct, the 19th is a holiday, there's nothing scheduled for the town. The 18th is fully booked for both rooms.
So the 17th,
17th, we could do, there's a 4 to 6 meeting from the Golf Commission, but we could come in right after the Golf Commission ends. I would say probably 6:30 to be safe.
Can people do the 17th in June?
I cannot, no.
The 16th, this room is free, it's a Monday night.
We can't do that.
Yeah, we got problems here.
Yeah.
John is, Monday, Tuesdays, he's out on his fishing stuff.
And again, there's gonna be a point, I know some of our meetings, I already have conflicts that I'm not gonna be able to
Yeah.
attend. I will do my due diligence and watch it and make my comments afterwards, but we need to find a time that a room is available that we can meet.
Richard, would you take on talking to the Cultural Center, the library? Are they open for any of these meetings that we're looking at? Because we seem to think that 6/18 seems to be a date.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't make 6/18.
There are gonna be some dates that
Yeah.
it's,
We're just never gonna
Yeah.
make.
So all three of 16, 17, 18,
You-
3 people said they
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
conflicts already.
I'll be surprised, to be honest with you, if we find a date that everyone's available.
Right,
Right.
that's why this is probably the biggest discussion.
So there's nothing as of yet scheduled that next week before our meeting, the 23rd, 24th, and 25th. There's nothing scheduled. And again, I think there may be standing committees, but they're not scheduled in that calendar downstairs. We could claim one of those dates, get into the schedule today. 23rd, 24th, and 25th, can people look?
25th.
Oh, the
's
25th is our
I'm
hearing.
I'm sorry, the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th.
Richard, what about 11, 12, or 13? Is that ruled up next week?
We're already, you have to be able to
Like-
post the meeting.
right.
Posting, okay.
It's a
Yeah.
posting
You-
issue.
You have FinCom next Thursday, the 12th,
Yeah, okay.
here. Let me look at
So
the
can-
other room.
Can we just, in case, and I don't know how hard it is to cancel,
Very
to
easy.
do a meeting for the week of the 16th and the 23rd, just in case we don't get everything done at the first meeting, that we have a second meeting before the public hearing?
Well, if we got,
I'm just-
if we have the 17th here, I mean, is that good for almost everybody?
Good for me.
Which day?
The 17th, I know it's gonna be a problem for you, John, but it's gonna be a problem for somebody no matter what we
Could
do.
we
Yeah,
do the
yeah.
17th at like 7?
No, 17th is definitely out. I have
Okay.
commitment that night also, so
Okay,
unfortunately, but that's the way it is.
And the
And again-
16th at 7, John?
Pardon?
How about on the Monday? What time would you be back from,
Monday, I
like
could
at
make
7?
arrangements for Monday to be here.
I'm
The
out that
16th?
day.
Oh, Monday the 16th then?
Monday the 16th would be good. I could make arrangements.
what's the availability of?
Herb
Right
can't
now-
do Monday.
Oh, here.
What's that?
Herb can't do
See,
Monday.
well,
Yeah,
But
see,
like-
we're gonna,
That's-
somebody's not gonna be able to
Right.
come no matter what we do, so we just need to,
I'm happy to do it a date that I'm not available, because I'd be happy to watch, I mean, I was watching town meeting from St. John on my vacation.
Oh,
I'll
Lord, save us.
Terrible.
I'll watch,
We feel
I'll
for
watch
you.
the meeting.
Did the bar run out of martinis?
oh, it's better with a drink.
That's probably true too.
So the 17th, we could do 6:30 or 7 here, and we can book that right now. The 16th, this room is available as well.
All right,
I like the
druthers,
prefer a night that the
Monday or
Board of
Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
We're doing Tuesday, 6/17,
6
6:30?
PM?
6 PM.
All right, I'm coming smelly.
It's okay. I'll let you sit in the corner.
You're coming smelly?
Yep,
Oh,
Great. All right.
my pickleball.
That was
you
good.
wouldn't be
Night.
the first person who ever came to a meeting smelly.
Is that right?
You
We
at
have some
least
people
a
who,
legitimate reason.
we have some people who actually make a point of it.
All right, if we can take a few minutes to talk about topics that we think we would like to consider for discussion. And this is not a why it's good, and we get into a discussion here of why it's good, bad, or indifferent. Topics. I'll start with new hire,
Hey,
separate article or not. Charter is silent on separate article, and that has come up as an issue. So, I'm starting with one topic,
charter compliance.
the whole charter compliance.
Madam Chairman.
Capital plan?
Yes,
Before we get too far here, I think this is fraught with some danger. For us to do this in this meeting with this sort of minimal level of discussion, with the press present, I think it's unwise for us to sort of, I'm unclear as to whether we're a body to hear ideas from people and organize them and present them, or basically come in here with the ideas and we're going to take it from there. We'll listen to people, but it's basically we have an agenda. I'd very much rather respect the idea of an open slate. Let's see what comes in at this meeting on the, whatever, 25th. And have the discussion that you're looking for subsequent to at least that meeting, and maybe even a second meeting.
He's right.
I don't want to ruin our potential for success by being cast as people who are coming in with an agenda. I'd rather us be open to any ideas and direction that we find ourselves going in.
Okay.
So I think
I
it's,
started having this putting this on the agenda because no, we don't wanna have, this is what we're going to do and we're gonna tell you what we're gonna put in the charter. But we all have opinions, because we are part of the community. So there are probably topics that we should come up with and have a discussion. Part of that is at some point, and then we have to hear what the community thinks. For example, half of the communities in the Commonwealth appoint their town clerk, half elect their town clerk. Neither one is right or wrong. I don't have a dog in that race. So there
Yeah.
might be
I agree.
things that because we're gonna be talking topic by topic by topic. What do we think? We've all been here long enough that we know that there is stuff that we would want to have considered and see what the public thinks and hear what the public thinks.
well then, with all due respect, Madam Chairman, in
Sure.
response to my question, I think I would prefer to have you request the members of this committee to think about this topic and to come to the next meeting prepared to discuss it, and not discuss it today.
I'm not planning on discussing today.
I
said,
don't
what are
even
the-
mean listing it. If we're listing things, we're discussing them. And
No, we're
anything
not.
that gets out in this publication, here or there,
All right, then all right, then I'll change this. What do we think?
Linda, can we view this in a different fashion, which is maybe we ought to come up with a mission statement for this commission?
The statement of the mission is
Review the charter.
review the charter.
We don't, yeah. No, we don't need more than that.
Okay.
I agree with Paul.
Okay.
And I think we all have thoughts about certain things that we've observed, that we believe might be ripe for change, that might be ripe for cleaning up. But we are ultimately going to be taking each of these subjects by themselves.
Yes,
And I think at that point, that's the time to have the discussion about, okay, this is what we think about this part of it. And I think Paul is absolutely right. I think to just even have a general discussion about what it is that's bothering us today that we might want to look at is probably counterproductive.
okay. Then I'll change that and say, I'd like you all to think about what you would like to have as topics. Because on June 17th, we're gonna have a meeting.
But-
And part of that meeting is going to be, what's the next topic for discussion? You have to, on an agenda, say to the public, this is the topic that is under discussion, so that the public knows and can come and listen. You gotta notify the public what you're gonna talk about. So, how do we do that?
Well, I think we are still very much in our organizational phase, and I think by the next meeting, hopefully, we will have better information about the consultant, better information about what we want to do about a secretary, a discussion about what the hearing is going to be about, whether it's us presenting ideas to the public or whether we're just going to say to the public, okay, you guys are all here and you've obviously got an interest. What's bothering you?
What would you like to see changed?
What would you like to see?
Comes to us.
So I think we've got enough for an agenda. I think getting into individual topics at this point might be just a shade premature
Okay.
until we get some of this other nuts and bolts stuff organized. Does
You
that
okay
make
with
sense?
that?
Oh, yeah, no, I was going to agree, and I would think that one of the big agenda items on the 25th would be for the public to come and speak.
That
and
is the
yes.
agenda of the
That's-
25th.
And because I don't think we can go into any topics until we hear from them. Because,
Got it? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
they voted for us to facilitate this, but, yeah.
I have an agenda topic for you for the next time
Okay.
that I think is appropriate, and that is to have us individually read this and come to the meeting in whatever, and let's discuss what is in this current charter, and get to know what it is that we're prospectively dealing with. I think it's absolutely wrong. I can't state it strongly enough to get a message out to the public that somehow we know the topic, we've got the answers. And you can say, well, we'll have some people come in and react to us so we don't look like. Well, that may be your desire, but what's going to come out of it is these people are engineering this move. And if we're not in favor of the direction they're engineering, we're not going to show up. I can guarantee you that. And then there's going to be the group of people who might be helpful, but get turned off because it seems like we're taking charge. So I think we're moving too quickly here. I know we've got a limited time period.
I got it. So I'm good.
Okay, I'm done.
Rather than reiterate it 3 times, I got it.
I'll
So-
say no more.
Next agenda will include we'll sit and we'll talk about the charter, read it and do it.
I think what would be helpful for homework as well, for those who were not involved for the last few years, there was a charter review committee that did substantial work. And they, in my recollection, please, the 2 of you who were on the committee, please inform me. You literally went line by line through the charter.
We sure did. We
And I-
have 2 reports to the select board.
So I think it would be helpful if those were executive summaries of those reports, or if those reports were available, that people should look at that to see what a committee has already done in the last few years, looking at the charter, so that, I don't think there are specific agendas, but I think there is a committee that had done some work already
A lot of work.
and identified areas that should be revisited. And I think if we could take the time to review some of that work, whether it's looking at the tapes of those minutes, or the meetings, or getting the minutes, or getting, if there were 2
There are
presentations,
There are 2 reports that were sent to the select board.
and as chair, do you still have
I
those?
sure do.
Could you?
Send them to
I've
us.
got here, provide the 2 reports to the select board.
Okay.
But can they be provided to us
That's what I mean.
prior to?
Oh, yeah.
So I think,
that
Paul,
when we
that
come
would-
to the next meeting,
I
we're-
wholeheartedly
we've got
agree.
all of it.
And I would ask, are there any other living members of the 1980?
I'm glad you asked. And I'm not even the oldest one.
No, oh, well, they are. How about talking to,
Alan
Bringing them in.
Alan Thompson.
Alan, was like,
good? Yeah, that's,
Shirley.
Shirley, yeah.
Most of the rest.
that's, Bill, were you on it?
Bill was here for the whole thing.
You were taking notes, I bet.
My mother, believe it or not, was on the original charter commission.
But that-
She's in
that's-
Florida, so.
Okay.
Can
But
we invite them, Madam Chairman, into the meeting?
I'm not a man.
Chatham.
In case you
Chairwoman.
haven't-
Chairwoman,
You said-
Madam
you said
Chair.
Madam
Madam
Chairman.
Chair.
Oh,
Madam Chair. Oh, sticky.
I am sticky.
I think that's.
If someone wants to invite them, go for it.
Neil's gone, Bob Peterson's gone.
I think it would be
I think it's just
informative.
3 of us, 4 of us, yeah.
It would set a good base for the group.
Well, we all like talking about the good old days, why not?
I'm not, I'll just say for my 2 cents, I'm not sure how much value will come out of it. There was a ton of work done 40 years ago. Yes, we can talk about all the stuff that was done. I'm not sure how helpful that is gonna be now. The world has changed in 40 years, so what may have been a topic 40 years ago is not a topic now? Or wasn't even on the wavelength then and is now?
Maybe.
Senator, the only reason I will disagree is I believe that the initial charter was coming from scratch. There was nothing there. So those folks, and they did great work to create a charter. I'm more really concerned about what happened with the Charter Review Committee, which was done in the last few years, that looked at the charter that is in place. So they've already done some of the work that we're planning on doing. I want that input. I love Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Gomes, I'd love to have them come visit. However, I think the more important work was done in the last few years by the Charter Review Committee. So that would be, I would prefer to have, we have two of those members on this committee. So, and if we look at that, I think that would be far more valuable to me than the original charter that was starting from scratch.
Right.
So we'll tell you everything you want to know.
And you're certainly available, all the minutes from the Charter Review Committee are on the town website. You can read them all, and you can see the discussions that went on. I have the 2 reports, I can send them to everyone, you can read them. And we can have that kind of a discussion for the next agenda.
Yes.
Are we, in terms of the meeting, I know we're gonna meet on the 17th at 6:30, I think,
Correct.
which is a
6:30?
Tuesday. Is Tuesday going to
6:30?
become our meeting time or not?
We thought Thursday, because there are gonna be so
Thursday
many
still.
conflicts, like John has Finance Committee on Tuesdays.
Got it. So Thursday evenings at 6.
Right.
So that'll
Or
be our,
6:30?
that'll be our.
6:30.
6:30 sounds good.
That's
That'll
fine.
be our regular.
All right. Are we going to meet after this? We're gonna have a public hearing on the 25th. Are we then gonna meet every Thursday for, say, through the summer to get us to some point?
And say,
Starting
plan
with-
for it unless we find out we don't need to.
Starting the 26th or the following week?
Oh, the night after the public hearing.
Oh,
Yeah, I
Following
don't
week.
know.
Following week,
Following week,
which is July 3rd.
Third.
July 3rd.
So we all gonna be here on July 3rd? No.
No.
how about July
What have we
2nd?
got here?
Again, that gets us to a Wednesday.
So go fall back to the Tuesday
When-
nights that
yeah.
everybody seemed,
Except for John.
but he
And
can send his notes ahead.
What Tuesday?
What are we debating,
July
the
the
16th or
1st.
17th?
I could probably do
To
that.
July
Now
20th.
July,
Request
It's a
that
clear
time
date.
off.
the week of,
So we want to shoot for a July
So,
1st
but we've
meeting?
got the 7th, the
Tuesday
first,
night, 6:30.
we've
Okay.
got the 17th.
17th.
You start
I'm
getting,
sorry?
and then
July
the
1st,
25th,
6:30?
which is this one.
That's a Tuesday.
Yeah, I can't
That's
read that
So
one.
Tuesday the
6/17,
Tuesday the
6/25.
1st, so we're looking at
That's the
Tuesday the
public
17th.
hearing.
Public.
you already booked the
And then
room for the 17th.
17th
Thursday, the
booked.
whatever it is.
So July 1st, is that correct?
July 1st, okay.
Yes.
July 1st, at 6:30, at
He's
7?
gonna double check, 6:30.
And what am I doing? I'm going downstairs to find out about a clerk.
Okay.
Right.
All right, what else do we have to discuss tonight?
July 1st.
And then starting July 10th, it'll be Thursdays
Right, starting July 10th, it'll be Thursdays.
at
Do we want it at 6:30?
6:30.
6:30? Okay.
It'll be every Thursday after,
Starting 7:10, you said. Okay.
Yeah.
and every Thursday after that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Until we don't need to
We
meet
can always order
every week.
pizza
Yeah.
if people are hungry. Or Luke can cook.
I can go. A pizza.
Yeah, you can cook pizza.
Okay, last thing is, I had talked about, we all need to have towns for responsibilities, that if we're looking at stuff, we need to go out, look at our specific towns, bring it back, well, this is how this town does it, this is how that town does it. So I'm gonna start out, I am picking Harwich. Let's see if we can get all the towns covered.
Do all towns have?
Just to
town
sign,
clerks?
everybody, just to sign.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
easier.
all
the
the
towns
towns,
of
bring it back to
Massachusetts,
us
or-
next
Yeah.
week.
Do we
Here's
want
what
to,
you get.
do we want to include Nantucket and the Vineyard
No.
and
No.
Barnstable?
No,
Only I need to go visit.
You need to go visit. We want to.
you're not expensing, by the way.
Oh.
You're not, yeah, you're not an
It's on
expense.
your own nickel.
We want to include Barnstable, which has a town council, but they're still a town. Yes, no?
I think
Is this
they're
for
much
charter?
larger.
Yeah,
right?
this is for us to go in, like if there's a question on how many people are elected versus
Oh,
appointed.
okay. So that'd be, so you're saying each of these towns has a charter?
Is Barnstable a town
They
or
have
is it a
something.
city
Okay.
yet?
Brewster, I
Still a
think,
town?
just put
Or
in
is it
a
city?
charter.
No.
Is that right?
Still
What's
a
it called,
town?
Orleans?
Was it Orleans or Brewster? Somebody just recently put a charter in the past couple of years.
I don't know.
Find out.
The
who's
Brewster, they
consultant.
never had one?
I think it was Brewster, they never
I think
had
it was
one.
Brewster.
So there are, I think they all have charters at this
Okay.
point. But do we want to include Barnstable?
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah, might as well.
But
You know,
it's-
They're,
just a
they're
second.
so
It's an out of the
different.
box.
They are.
That's
But
what's-
they're
Yeah,
so
they're-
different
they're-
than
they
us.
really-
I mean,
Yeah, that's
Barnstable
why I'm asking.
even has like fire districts.
I know.
How do we,
Everyone has a fire
right, how
chief.
do we
Relate.
relate to
So what's
5
consensus,
fire
Barnstable,
districts?
yes or no?
No.
Although,
No.
can I just throw out one thing?
Sure.
There was a lot of discussion on the select board and with the town administrator, maybe not publicly, but privately in the past 5 years, about changing the charter to the Barnstable. So maybe it makes sense to at least understand the Barnstable.
With all due respect
And
to
I'm
any
not,
other
a-
board,
yeah,
this is our charter commission.
okay.
And I think this is the work of reviewing the charter. I'm not gonna placate any other board that's out there. You know, if it's general public wants to have input, that's great, but what's happened in the past, I frankly don't care. It's, we're moving forward. So it's, whatever the select board or any other board, finance committee, anyone else felt.
That's
let's
not,
do
no, no,
our-
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, does it make sense to understand the structure of a larger population location? I mean, if our population were to double or something, I don't know.
I just heard Judy volunteer to take Barnstable.
Not necessarily, no.
That's part of the out of the box thinking, to go beyond.
Well, at least to understand where we don't want to,
Right.
Richard, where we do not want to go.
No, I,
But,
I'm
and
in
why
agreement.
we do not want to
Because
go.
somebody inevitably will ask the question, have you looked at?
Right.
Yeah.
I think
That's
that's
fine.
fair.
I
Yeah.
appreciate,
Sorry,
I
I-
appreciate you volunteering for Barnstable.
PhD, ABD here, so yeah, you gotta know, you gotta
But I think
know.
that's a good point.
You should
is
know what you don't
Have
know.
you considered, because we will get those questions,
Mm.
have you considered going to a full-time select board, a this,
Oh, yeah.
a that, a this or that? And we do have to consider those.
Yeah,
Well, one of the
Or at
things I
least
do
say,
think
yes,
we
we
should
did.
talk about is alternative top tier.
Yeah.
Is there a better way at some
And that's
point?
part of that, is looking at Barnstable for a town council. For a town council.
That's fine, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't wanna go there, I don't, that's,
You got the deal.
I just wanna, I
got
think
the
it's
sale.
important to have an
You
understanding
won, Judy.
as a neighboring town.
You got it.
Okay, I don't wanna, but yeah.
And
got it.
I can tell you, I come from Newton, and there were 24 people on their board of aldermen, because they were still aldermen.
24?
24. So if you think that we talk too long, 5 select board members,
God.
I want to give you 24 of them all standing up on a topic.
Jesus,
It was unbelievable.
long meetings.
And Barnstable, the town council in Barnstable is many more members than 5. So yeah, there's a practicality to it. Okay, then I'm gonna assign people.
Good.
Yep.
All right, we good?
Good.
Any other topics?
Pretty productive for our first.
Richard?
Just when you, looking at the towns and what the review is, we should have some bullet points of the information you're looking for. You know, it's almost the, okay, here's my checklist of what I wanna go down, if I'm calling Brewster or Orleans or P-Town.
I think that'll come out of our topic discussions.
That's fine.
When we have if the topic that comes up for an agenda is who should be elected or appointed, I think that should be a clue to you that you should go and ask your town.
But I think we
so
should
you
take
have
the
that.
10 or 15 minutes at a meeting to say.
This is what's
right,
next
so
agenda.
that when someone's gone to Brewster or Barnstable or Provincetown, we have the same information.
I think that's a good point.
Because people are gonna be looking for comparisons, and if
Right.
we're creating a document, an Excel
All over
spreadsheet.
the map
right,
otherwise.
we have the same information that we can compare from each community.
So that being said, we probably need homework.
Yeah, we'll have homework
With
sheets. So, because
our
I think it's good
topics.
to all of us have the same information, so we can put it
Do
into
we
a
have a
grid.
drive or something? A document drive?
No, I don't do any of that.
I,
I can't deal
create
with
that.
Google Drive, and I do not get along. I can
So
never
what
get
about
into it. It's
a
awful.
Google
Dropbox.
document?
Dropbox.
Drop, yeah.
They have the town, it's just,
Send me an
it's a,
email.
To keep all the
Get
documents.
email.
But it's to have something for all official documents from the Charter Commission, that everything we're doing is sent there.
It's all supposed to be attached to the minutes each time.
Well, it's
So
like a
what
little
I think
mini
Judy
library.
would be, so what I could create, and I'm just saying, and it doesn't have to be me, a document that has every town, everybody has access to it. Judy would go in and, under Barnstable, create select board, blah, 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 the information she's gathered.
As long as,
So
I
that,
can tell you that these, I do not, for some reason, I cannot access these things.
because you have a Mac.
No, on PC.
No, I
Do you-
think not even that, not a shared document, I think that
Okay,
gets
that's
too
too
challenging.
much.
Yeah, but just, you know, like when, if I'm gonna do a little mini report on Barnstable, and we can email those, but is there also like, maybe the town's got these virtual
I think we
folders
can
that
put
it can go
files
there,
on our webpage.
Well,
or
actually,
files on the webpage, or,
well, actually, if there is a report that is somebody has put in writing, it should get attached to the minutes and therefore becomes part of the public record.
and that would be accessible through the
Yeah.
webpage.
I mean,
I
we don't
guess
have to attach
That
the
might be the
charter
simplest.
to every
The
single.
Dropbox is what Richard's saying, everybody has a Dropbox.
The town, the committees have them.
The
town
committees
has them.
have them.
They do,
Yeah,
okay.
And I am unsuccessful in using those two.
I'll be
I don't know
happy
what it is,
I will
but
be
my
happy
system will not, I
to
don't know,
do
my email,
time
my
to
system
show
is
you
awful.
Dropbox. It is simple. You're a professional, brilliant accountant.
You're gonna be
And-
so excited when you get,
Oh.
No, I'm
when,
not.
after
Yes,
you
you will.
practice, yeah.
No, I just find it another place where I have to look for information rather than
Resistance-
getting it in an email.
Resistance is futile.
Futile.
Resistance is futile.
You guys will be sending me emails saying I'm not using Dropbox
Okay.
Before you close,
or anything else.
are we done? 'Cause
I think we are, so
Other,
motion.
there were no
No,
other
wait.
topics?
Wait,
Were
wait,
there
wait.
other topics?
July 1st is 6:30 meeting, Tuesday.
Yes.
I'll
Yes.
see if I can get here by then.
Okay.
I just have something I'd like to say. First of all, thanking Linda. She came right out of the box. She's organized all this. She's done a lot of work, I know, in the last couple of weeks to get this put together properly. I think it's a great first meeting. I think we've got a real interesting mix of people here, and looking forward to the next year and a half working with y'all.
But keep in mind too, and thank you for saying that, we do only have a year.
Mm.
So we can't be ditzing around, having meetings once a month.
No.
We have work to do,
Oh, yeah.
and we have a very distinct timeline. This isn't like going to the federal government and they spend 10 years whether or not they're gonna build a bridge somewhere. We have work to do and we have deadlines. So we really do have to keep that in mind. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Sandy,
Fred, would you stop the recording, please?
11:34. Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.